bullet journal setup video for 2023. If you're new around here, hi, my name is Anna, and I'm once again so excited to start a new bullet journaling year with you, and this must be my all-time favorite yearly setup, so I'm very excited to take you through the whole thing. Here's the beautiful new notebook I chose to start this year with. It's by Notebook Therapy, who are also kindly sponsoring this video, so a few words about them before we get started. I know many of you are already familiar with them, and I've been a fan of theirs for a long time. In my opinion, Notebook Therapy offers one of the best bullet journal notebook selection on the market, and they also sell many other cute stationery and decoration items. They were so kind to send me their new Moonlit Alchemy collection, which my new beige journal is also part of. This collection is my favorite one they've come out this year. It features this beautiful washi tape collection with some darker vintage style tapes, and also these beautiful sticker sheets and stamp collection, and also a lighter color notebook option. I know I'll get so much use out of these products in my reading journal, and they come out with new collections like this multiple times a year, and everything is always so beautifully packaged and well thought out. So I'll leave a link to their website in the description, and if you'd be interested in shopping something for yourself, I also have an affiliate coupon code that will save you 10% of everything. So again, thank you so much for Notebook Therapy for sponsoring this video, but now it's time to actually open up this brand new journal and start with this setup itself. In this video, we are creating the beginning setup of the bullet journal, so these are the pages I'm gonna use the whole time I'll use this journal. We're gonna get started from the first full empty spread, and I'm gonna show you these few colored papers that I printed out for this theme. If you like the look and you want to use these same ones, I'll upload these files on the free section of my shop website. I'll leave a link to that in the description so you can print these same papers for yourself. And I just really wanted to go for something slightly textured, something a little bit abstract and stylish for this theme. And I personally think that the beginning setups are such a great opportunity to play with different color combinations, and it also makes creating the layouts a little bit faster. So the first spread here will be just some sort of intro spread. I think it's nice to start a new bullet journal by writing the year with some big numbers, and I also like to use these intro spreads to kind of set the tone for the setup and the whole year ahead. So I just filled the whole background with this gray textured paper, and then we're gonna start writing the numbers. I wanted to be on the safe side here, so I chose to write the numbers on a separate white paper, just in case I mess them up or something. And I think drawing a grid on the background will help a lot to keep the numbers the same size. I think these were 4 centimeters wide and 5 centimeters tall. But after we have the main outlines sketched with a pencil, I took out some black pens to color these in. I mostly ended up coloring these with my Uni Posca markers. I have some bigger sizes of these pens, so I colored the edges first with a smaller pen to get more precise lines, and then I filled the middle areas with the bigger size. And then after that was done, we're just gonna cut these out and glue them to the page. So even if you have some uneven edges, this is still a step where you can smooth things out. For me, I feel like no matter how careful I try to be, my hand always shakes a little bit, so creating very even numbers like this can be much harder than it looks. I wanted there to also be some of these geometric shapes on this page, so I glued this simple white circle behind the numbers, and then we can move on to finish the second page. Something I always like to do at the start of a new year is to choose a word of the year ahead, and for 2023, mine will be balance. the whole concept of balance is something I've been thinking about a lot recently, and it's something that I personally struggle with quite a lot, especially since my husband and I both work from home, and that can quite easily blur the lines of a work-life balance. So I thought that, in a way, dedicating this whole year to finding more balance in my life would make me more mindful of all of that. Under the main word, I also wrote this short quote that really hit me when I saw it. These are words by Dolly Parton, who said, "Don't get so busy making a living that you forget to make a life." I hope someone who needed to hear those words will also find them very impactful. And then as the last step of our 2023 intro spread, we're gonna throw one black and white flower on top of this orange brown shape. So these black pen flowers were something I really wanted to use in this yearly setup. I did something like this in July last year in my bullet journal theme, and they are fairly quick and easy drawings. They definitely look much more complex than they actually are to create, so I highly recommend you to try it out. Just start with a simple pencil sketch and then go over the same lines with a black pen, and you really don't need to worry about being too precise or careful with the lines. I think these are great studies for sketching or finding a more confident and loose drawing style in general. And I find that these very loose, scribbly drawings often create a surprisingly pretty outcome. I decided to finish this drawing by adding some white accents on top of the flower and just a few strokes on the leaves. The white pen I use is from my Artistro pen collection, which is fairly inexpensive for the number of pens you get, and that and all the other tools I'll be using in this video are listed in the description. But yeah, that's finally it for this abstract start for our yearly setup. And now it's time to move on, and next we're gonna set up a future log for the first 6 months of this year. If this is your very first bullet journal, you might wanna set a key page or maybe an index or year at a glance page. Those are all something I've done in the past, but this will already be my 5th year of bullet journaling, and I kind of know which pages I tend to use and not use already, so I may be skipping some regular pages here that you might want to check out. But anyway, a future log is a place where you can set up any upcoming events when you still haven't set up the monthly themes that far. As for the decorations, I wanted something pretty simple here, so we're gonna create this geometrical pattern to the top and bottom of the page, and then we'll layer some of the items on the page on top of it. I used the reddish brown paper in the background again, and then I started to draw these shapes that I'm gonna call the half onion pattern. So I did a small mark on every 6th dot row, and then I marked the middle, so the 3rd dot row on the opposite side. Then the first step of the pattern is to just draw these straight lines on all of those marks, and then we'll start drawing these curvy lines that are all going to the same spot. So I was just freehanding all of this here, and in the end I also made the middle curve lines a little bit darker with a thicker pen. So I think I mainly used the Micron 01 size throughout this video, but all the thicker lines are made with a 05 size, I believe. I always use these Micron pens to write in my bullet journal, and for that I usually use either the size 01 or 02. Anyway, after repeating the same thing to the right side and to the bottom edge of the page, we can finally start writing all the monthly calendars. So I believe that the correct way to do a future log would be to start from February and set the months 1 month over the period you're about to use the journal, but there's just something about that my perfectionism doesn't allow. I think I did it 1 year, but it just kept bothering me the whole time. So I'm just gonna start everything from January, even if it doesn't really make much sense because we're gonna set the January theme pretty soon. But oh well, I ended up writing the monthly titles on this dark navy craft paper that I just randomly found in my drawer. I wasn't planning on using navy in this theme, which is why I didn't show it to you in the beginning, but it just looked so pretty against the gray and orange that I just went with it, and I also added for you to the color palettes that you can print out. Anyway, since I usually don't need that much space on my future log, I like to combine these with my monthly statistics thing that I'll use these gray boxes for. So if you like to keep track of something every month, maybe something health or exercising related, maybe social media growth, how many books you've read, or anything like that, I find that it's very helpful to have everything on one page where you can easily compare different months and see your progress. So I use these small icons for the stats I like to track, but if these don't look like something you would like to use, you could change it for anything that would suit your life better. But after that, we have the second spread ready to go, and it's time to move on. So this next section must be my favorite one from this whole setup, and this will be for the 2023 yearly goals. I'm pretty big on setting goals, and I think the start of a new year is the best time to sit down, think about your life, maybe dream a little bit, and make a plan to go after something new. We're starting here again with some shapes and titles, and I quickly showed you here how I just used some random house objects like a coffee cup to draw these circle shapes. Anyway, I went with this similar heavy serif font. There are many fonts like this, so you could, for example, Google the Georgia font or D-Dot, or the one I mainly used here as my reference is called New York, I believe. And I always sketch out the titles beforehand just to be sure that I have enough room for each letter and that the title will end up where I had intended it. And I do the same thing for everything else too, so it doesn't matter how long I've been bullet journaling, I think I'll never give up the habit of sketching everything out with a pencil beforehand. Anyway, I thought that the goals section would be perfect for another inspiring quote, so I went with this one, which is probably my favorite quote or wisdom of all time, which says, "Through self-discipline comes freedom." It's by none other than Aristotle, so you know it must hold some ancient wisdom. But then when it comes to the actual goal setup, I decided to first create a Dutch door here, so we'll have a little bit more space to work with. I also just went ahead and added some papers to the other edge, and we're gonna draw some plants here later too, but I decided to finish everything else here first. So I personally like to have very open-ended questions in my bullet journal, some places to do brainstorming or just write down your current ideas. So to set off the whole goal section, I just wrote this year I want to title that will maybe help me to narrow down some important things. Next, we're doing a small section for new habits, and I decided to tie this with my word of the year. So the title here is New Habits for Balance. I've been feeling a little bit out of routine recently. It's been a little bit difficult for me to keep a consistent schedule, so I feel like I really need some new habits, and I hope that the new year excitement would help me to start some better routines and habits moving to the next year. Then on the next spread, I'm gonna set the actual goals, and I wanted to divide this into 3 different themes. So the first one is work goals, the second one is life goals, and the third is health goals, which can be both physical and mental health related. So I first gave myself a few lines to summarize what I would like to achieve in this certain area, and then listed a few bullet points that will be some actual action steps or measurable goals. Something that I think is very important about goal setting is keeping your goals very clear so that there's a concrete line or action when you know you can cross the thing off your list. If the goals are more abstract and difficult to measure, I feel like it's also kind of difficult to know when you have reached it or not, and then it just kind of defeats the purpose of a goal. Anyway, I'll fill this whole section later with better time, so now it was just time to finish everything with a few plant drawings again. So this time I went with these lavender branches. I've drawn something like this before for a washi tape project, so it felt like a pretty easy plant for me to repeat for this theme. And we're gonna do the exact same thing as we did on the intro spread. So first, sketch everything out with a pencil, then follow that with some black scribbly line work, and then add the white pen on top as the last detail. I had printed this gray paper on the washi paper that I use for the patterns in my shop, and I had to go over everything with this white pen a few times. This paper has a little bit more loose, airy texture, so the white paint of this pen kind of sank into the paper itself, but going over the same area a few times finally made the white stand out. But that's it for the goals section. Let me know how you felt about this and what type of system you like to use for goals. It's something that I'm always so excited about, and I also love to learn new effective ways to do it. Anyway, now it's time to flip over, and we still have 2 sections to set up in this video, and the next one will be a budget tracker. Here we are changing things up a little bit first, and we're gonna do a vertical title. The style of the letters will be the same, and the only thing I changed here was to use a little bit more ruler to draw the lines, just to keep everything extra straight and clean here. And after the title, I started to work on this geometric abstract decoration thing for the background, which didn't end up quite as I imagined. I think I should have planned this out a little bit better with a pencil and been more careful about the lines. It's always difficult for me to draw even lines, especially while filming, because I'm in all kinds of weird positions to stay out of the shot and also to not rotate my journal too much. So I felt like I ended up with some pretty uneven shapes and a little bit too much everything here in the middle, and I decided to fix that by adding this white piece of paper at the top of everything and just making it look like it was something I totally was supposed to do from the start. I think it did help with the background pattern a lot. It covered the messiest spot, and now I just darkened some of the edges a little bit and called it a day. But after the decorations, let's move on to the next page, and here we're gonna start with another Dutch door. I also added some colorful paper on the right side here and made this black line border following the Dutch door. I also like to use this corner rounding tool, which happens to perfectly match the rounded corners of my notebook, so it just adds a very clean finished look to these Dutch doors in my opinion. But then when it comes to the actual budget tracking, I have a monthly system for this that I've been using for quite a while already. My thing is that my income comes from many small streams, and to keep track of all that, I just kind of like to list all those up to calculate the total amount every month, and then I like to keep track of our savings as well. So I think budget tracking is something very personal. How I do it might not work for you and your situation, but I do think that for anyone making the habit of checking how much money you have on your accounts and how much went in versus out every month, and maybe keeping some saving goals would be very beneficial no matter what your situation is. I usually also like to leave room for a small wish list and some fixed expenses on these pages, but I didn't have room for it this time, so I just kinda left those out. Anyway, I will do the same thing for each month, so after writing out the titles, that's that for the budget section. And now let's flip over to the last few pages of this whole video, which will be more of a hobby related section. I'll use this to track my knitting, so it will be for my knitting wish list, to list some patterns and to keep some monthly notes. But you could use this exact same layout and just switch up the hobby for anything else. I think if I didn't have a separate reading journal, I think having this as a book or reading section would work perfectly. But for anyone who is watching the reading journal videos, I am planning to continue those also next year, and the setup video for that will be up in the very end of this month. So I'll film it after I come back from Finland, where I'll be spending my holidays. But anyway, I started here with some similar things we've done this far. So a Dutch door, a kind of bulky letter title, some colorful paper, and a small section for each month. And then on this first left side, I decided to make this small pouch from my gray paper by folding over the edges and gluing those to my notebook. And this is because when I last set up my knitting pages, I was thinking that the room for my pattern wish list wasn't gonna be enough, and it definitely wasn't. I think my knitting plans changed quite a lot, so I thought that having this pouch would allow me to add a new list here very easily if the old one kind of changes too much, or if there's a new pattern release that I'm very excited about, that changes up my plans completely. I don't have too much time to knit, but it's something that I've loved doing behind the scenes, so I always try to make at least a little bit time for it. I actually just finished my first high quality knitted sweater, which I'm just so over the moon about. I've honestly been thinking about starting a new Instagram account just for my knitting related stuff. I felt like it might be a new type of creative challenge for me to take a little bit different style pictures or something like that. I also love talking about the yarn and the patterns and stuff, so I might end up doing that. I will post it on my main journaling Instagram if that happens. So for all of you fellow knitters out there, keep an eye out for that. I must say that it would be a very rarely updating account, and I would definitely not take any pressure about it. But I don't know, I've been kind of feeling a little bit uninspired, especially about Instagram recently. So I thought that this might be a new fun thing to try out to kind of get me more inspired again. But anyway, back to the page. So as you can see, we finished here with yet another plant drawing, which has a very similar style to the first one. I just tried to make this one even a little bit bigger, so it will kind of peek through the edge, and also the paper I'll put inside the gray pouch. And then on the last page, I did write out this needle chart, because this was something I referred to so many times in my previous setup. So since I live in Japan and I use the Japanese needle sizes, I need a chart like this whenever I read patterns that are usually written for US needles, and it's just a very easy place for me to see everything I need at the same time. But then this very last page here will be for me to write out my whole yarn stash, because as much as I love looking at new yarn and buying new yarn, I really want to prioritize what I already have in my collection. We don't have a lot of storage space in our home, so I'm desperately trying to keep my yarn collection somewhat manageable. But I guess that's finally it for the whole 2023 yearly setup. As I mentioned in the beginning, this ended up being my personal favorite I've done. I love the color and texture combinations, and I'm so excited to fill this all in. I hope you got many new ideas from this video and that it made you excited to set up your new journal. I'll still see you with the January setup video, which will come around the holidays. And then there will also be a reading journal flip through. I'm not sure if I'm able to film that before leaving for Finland, but if not, it will come out sometime at the end of the month as well. Anyway, if this was your first time around here and you'd like to stay tuned for more journaling and art stuff, definitely consider subscribing. And I think that's about it. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you're having an amazing day or night wherever you are, and a wonderful holiday season ahead. And I'll hopefully see you in my next one. Bye bye!